I'm going to show you how to tie-dye a dress. For this simple tank top dress, I chose to use a black collar, a nickel collar, and a bordeaux. And I think I'm going to go for vertical stripe, pretty random, but keeping it very simple and casual. Let's see how it will work out. So for the skirt, I'm going to sort of pleat it with my hands and gather it. So I'm just pulling a layer of fabric. Maybe I'll show you in a different way. So I'm just pulling a layer of fabric and gathering it. So I have this accordion, simply accordion fold stripe, and I'm going to tie it together using a rubber band. And I'm going to put some more in here. And since the top of the dress is going to be in a different pattern, I'm going to focus my rubber bands a lot into this bottom area and then gradually decreasing the quantity that I put coming out to the top, and I'll do a different treatment on the top. With tie-dyeing is a lot about experimenting, so a lot of times I don't really know how a project is going to come out before I do it. But the more you do it, also the more you'll be able to predict how the techniques are going to work out in the garment that you're doing. It's kind of important to think about the garment as a whole and the place where you want to put the patterns. For instance, if you want to place huge circle right on your belly, maybe you don't want that, or if you want to have an area with a lot of patterning happen and other areas very wide. So really think about the garment as a whole before you start tying it. And because I want the striping to happen, but I don't want it to be really obvious, I'm going to take my striping things and I'm going to start rolling it into a spiral shape. So I striped this end of the dress already, and I'm going to pick the end of the bottom of the dress and start rolling it in like a spiral, maybe up to here. Going to tie this together with a rubber band. Rubber bands are always your best friends when you're doing tie-dyeing. They just help you hold any pattern you want to make. Okay, the first one is in. Put a couple of more. And then for the top of the dress, I think I'm going to make a very random tie-dye to kind of contrast with a more like structural tie-dye that I did in the bottom. So I'm going to scrunch the top randomly, leading up to the spiral that I just created with the stripes before. After you're done, you just want to make sure that the transition area between the randomly scrunched part and the one that you did the stripes with a spiral is kind of neat, because you don't want to end up having a fully colored section there. You want it all to transition pretty easily, but I think it looks good. So I think I'm just going to bundle it all together. See how it's kind of separated? I'm just going to put a rubber band connecting it with the rest. and this is how it looks before I start dyeing. Because I'm going to use 3 colors, really the easiest way to do this is by using the squeeze bottle technique, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by getting the fabric wet. After the fabric is wet, I'm going to soak it in my dye activator solution, which I previously prepared by mixing washing soda and water. It should soak in the dye activator for 5 to 10 minutes. And after that, you just squeeze out the excess of water and you're ready to dye. So I'm going to start applying my colors. I chose 2 very similar colors, the black and the nickel, and I have a more contrasting color, which is the bordeaux. I want my dress to end up being mainly black and nickel with just the highlights of bordeaux, so I'm going to be very careful when I use the bordeaux, and I'm going to leave that for last. My nickel is slightly lighter than the black, so I'm going to start with that one. And I'm going to start applying in the dress and see how the color spreads. I'm going to flip it, apply it on the other side. And because this is such a tight bundle, you want to really make sure that you get dye through all of the layers so you don't end up with really white sections. Sometimes, to make sure that the dye goes through all of the layers, I even put the tip of the squeeze bottle and press it against the fabric, so I can, through applying pressure, make sure that the dye goes through the fabric. Okay, I think it's looking pretty good for the nickel, so I'm going to start adding little pops of black. And the good thing about leaving the black for after the other light color is that right now I'm noticing that I had big areas that had nickel that I don't want them to be as plain. So because the black dye is stronger than the nickel, I can over dye it and make some variation in it. Okay, so I think I'm going to start adding little pops of the bordeaux color, which I tested before, and it mixes really well with both the black and the nickel, and I think this is going to look pretty cool. Going back to some more black. I sometimes open my bundle a little bit to peek and to see if I have areas that are very white, because but I think this is looking pretty good. Maybe a squeeze in there. Massaging it a little bit forces the colors to blend with each other and force them to mix pretty much, so you don't have as much of a contrast in between color A and color B. It also forces the colors to go right through the middle and make sure that you don't have that much white areas. After you're done with the dyeing, you want to cover your garment with a plastic bag and let it cure for 4 to 24 hours. After that, you carefully remove all the rubber bands, you rinse, you dry it, and you're ready to wear. My dress has been curing for about 4 hours now, so I think it's ready to be opened. I just rinse it really quickly and wring it out, and I'm about to remove the rubber bands. Always be really careful when removing the rubber bands so it doesn't splash anything to you or you don't hurt yourself. You can always reuse these rubber bands too, just by rinsing them in water and then letting them dry and then save them for your next project. So if you're careful in removing them and you don't break them, then you can always use them again. If you get really impatient, you can also cut them in here. But I think this is unfolding pretty well. So this is the top part in which I had gone pretty random, and I think it actually looks really cool. I really like how the colors blend together. It's kind of like giving a little bit of a punk aesthetic to it. So let's see how the bottom looks. I remember that I got the rubber bands in the bottom really tight, so this is probably going to take a little longer to remove them, but slow and steady, we'll get there. First one, second one, third one. Removing rubber bands is sometimes harder when you're wearing gloves, so if you're sure that you give it a really good rinse, you can take off your gloves at this time. Last one, and it's reveal time. And this is how my bottom looks like. So actually, let me show you the front of it. So remember that on the bottom we were going for sort of these vertical stripes that would look a little bit organic, so not totally geometric. And yeah, I'm pretty pleased. We see a couple of like box action happening because of the rubber bands, but we have solid vertical stripes, and I really like it overall. I think it's a really good project. And this is how you tie-dye a dress.